So if you're making a channel about, among other things, guns, yeah, it's gonna happen every time. One of the first questions that you're going to be inevitably asked is, okay, so do you carry on a daily basis? And then depending on who you're talking to, either why or, oh, what do you carry? And for both, I have a somewhat contentious answer, but for right now I want to focus on the what. So, what I carry, and why I carry it instead of the hundreds of other options. I'm, well, broke. And I needed something decent for the money. I carry this. It's a Taurus G2C in 9mm. 9mm is best millimeter. And it's fine. It's okay. It's decidedly It's not bad. It's a decent carry gun. I'm rebuilding a lot of different things, so I needed something that was going to be capable of protecting me and mine, but also I needed to not spend a lot of money. And it helps that I was a massive geek. It's not great, but at bare minimum, I'm comfortable enough with its performance and reliability to carry it on a daily basis. So, why did I pick this? If you have about $500 and you're looking for a new gun, you're brand new to firearms and you want something simple and reliable, may I introduce you to Glock, please and thank you. I'm not going to tell you that this is as good as a Glock because, well, no, it's not. If you're expecting exacting Glock level performance, you're not going to find it here. That is not what this does. What it is good enough that I can go to the range, and most often this is not the thing that is the reason I am inaccurate. I am. What it is good enough to fire and hit what I'm actually aiming at. And that means I don't need to go past 25 yards. And this, at 25 yards, I have the ability to accurately deliver fire. I often wouldn't tell people to get cheap firearms because, well, they're often cheap for a reason. Sometimes they're just bad. Yeah! Sometimes they have notorious loading issues. Looking at you, Sky! SCCY, however the fuck you're supposed to pronounce that. Or like a lot of stuff in this price range. Sometimes you're buying a used gun, and then you just get to play the fun game of praying it was never used in a murder before you bought it. Hey! Taurus as a brand has a decidedly mixed reaction when you talk to most gun aficionados about this. You know, gun nuts. On the one hand, they wouldn't have military contracts around the world if they were just making crap. They wouldn't. On the other hand, the first generation of this very series had a recall because they weren't drop safe. It hit the floor or the wrong surface in exactly the wrong way. It can make holes in new fun places. And that's not good. So why is it safe now, you might be asking? Why should I trust you? Were you bought out by the corporations? Do they own you, queer armor? Are you lying to me? No. And also, calm down, take a deep breath. We're good. The two loudest noises that you will ever hear is a gun going bang when you expect it to stay quiet, and a gun being quiet when you expected it to go bang. The first generation of these did both. This is not off to a good start. Taurus had to develop this series through a few problems. The first generation of the Millennium series, something like a clone. Millennium clone. Had the same basic feature set as this, but it's also missing some basic safety features and some developments. You can kind of think of the first generation of the Millennium series as the incubator baby that Taurus had to learn not to drink during the development of, so that they can make the better one, which is the G2. God, that's a dark metaphor. See, these are what's known as striker fire pistols. In the first generation of these series, the strikers were really good at their job. Too good. See, the striker would go off whenever it was hit hard enough. So they ended up needing to put a physical switch in the way that blocked it. And this leads to the second noise that you need to worry about. The other loudest noise you will ever hear is pulling the trigger, expecting a bang, and getting a click. This is why a safety switch is something that a lot of people will argue about whether or not it's a good idea. Personally, a lot of the training and classes that I have done, I happen to do on a weapon that had a safety switch, so a lot of my practice and memory is already set up for that. This is very much a question that you're going to need to answer for yourself, because if you pull out a gun expecting to need it to defend your life, and it goes click instead of bang, that's very bad. The other solution that they did was put in a new trigger, which is, it's fine, it's decidedly okay. If you've never fired a gun before, it is easy enough to explain the concepts of break and reset on, at least. Here, let's go through the trigger now. This is something I'm going to do anytime I'm reviewing a firearm for y'all. The trigger, let's take a look at that. Now, weapon is clear. Now, that trigger. Now, the problem with this trigger is there is this wall of just blank air nothingness. So as you're pulling it down, up until the actual break point in the single action side of this, I have done this out of order. This is a dual action, single action pistol, that in the event the bang doesn't go off, it will try to restrike the same round. This is actually useful if you're using the gun with a laser rig, because it means that you can use the dual action to practice a follow-up shot. So that trigger. So there is this wall of just meaninglessness, and it's a little bit gritty and it doesn't feel great. And behind that wall of nothingness, there's a hard stop, and then a fairly decent break. That is, it's not a good trigger, but it's decent enough for the situation. Now that reset, it's a little bit of a tactile feel, way more of an auditory one. If you're listening for it, you will hear the reset. Is it a good trigger? No. It's the Panera Bread of triggers. In fact, that kind of describes the entire experience with this. If you go into this expecting some high-end $40 Italian perfect fare, you're gonna be really disappointed. This is designed to be the fast food equivalent of a high-end experience. It's not quite fast food, it's not quite the hamburger high point stuff. It's also not quite the fancy high-end stuff that it's mocking. And it's kind of okay if you know what you're getting. I give this other comparison. When I was very young, Folkleys were a big thing. Fake Oakleys that people would get from Canal Street in New York. These knockoff, terrible fakes that looked decent enough and did the thing that you need cheap sunglasses to do. Kept the sun out of your eyes and looked vaguely cool. If you go into this expecting high-end Oakleys, you're gonna be disappointed. If you go in expecting fake Oakleys for a fake Oakley price, not a bad weapon. Thank you all so much for watching, I really do appreciate it. Hit that like button if you want to see more content like this. Hit subscribe if you want to follow along with the stuff that I'm going to be making. And remember, moral doesn't mean legal, and Stonewall was a riot. Peace.